I'm not very up on rock history.
Really?
I'm not very interested in most popular music.
Rock icon Roger Waters has revealed his personal list of 6 artists he believes are true masters of their craft. He's known for his sharp words and high standards, but he also has a deep, honest respect for songwriters who truly shine. These chosen few created music that really spoke to his own artistic heart. Let us now unveil the 6 names that Roger Waters himself holds up as songwriting heroes. 1. The Beatles.
The main difference is that we've got more money and less time to ourselves. You know, everything's speeded up and we're just running around like mad.
It's hard to talk about modern songwriting without mentioning the Beatles. And for Roger Waters, their impact was nothing short of huge. He has often pointed to the Beatles, and to John Lennon in particular, as a major influence on his own journey as a musician and writer. Before the Beatles burst onto the world stage, popular music lyrics were often simpler, less personal. But Waters has explained how John Lennon and Paul McCartney really changed everything. They threw open the doors for artists like himself, showing that it was okay, even powerful, to write songs about your own personal experiences, your deepest feelings, your fears, and your dreams. This was a revolutionary idea at the time, and it gave Waters and many others the courage to look inward for their inspiration, rather than just writing about typical pop song topics like young love or dancing. The honesty and directness, especially in John Lennon's work, clearly resonated deeply with Waters. Lennon wasn't afraid to show his vulnerable side, his anger, or his confusion in his songs. This was something that Waters himself would later become famous for in his own complex and often painfully honest lyrics, especially in Pink Floyd albums like The Wall and The Final Cut, and throughout his solo career. These were works that delved deep into personal pain, war, loss, and the complexities of human relationships. Waters specifically holds Lennon's first proper solo album, John Lennon Plastic Ono Band, in very high regard.
I believe Thou Shalt Not Kill, basically, and I don't think it solves any problems by killing the person, the murderer.
That album is famous for its incredibly raw sound and its brutally honest lyrics, which were heavily influenced by Lennon's experiences with primal scream therapy. It's an album where Lennon strips away all the usual rock star defenses and lays his soul bare for the world to hear. You can easily see why this kind of unflinching artistic honesty and willingness to explore difficult personal truths would strongly appeal to Roger Waters, an artist who has never shied away from confronting uncomfortable realities in his own powerful music. For Waters, Lennon was more than just a great songwriter. He was a pioneer who made it possible to use rock music as a vehicle for profound personal expression. The groundwork laid by the Beatles for personal songwriting was immense, and another singular voice would soon take the art of lyricism into even more poetic territories. 2. The Who. In the chaotic and creative world of 1960s and 70s British rock, Pink Floyd and The Who were like 2 giant competing planets. Both bands were pushing the boundaries of what a rock band could be, but they did it in very different ways. Pink Floyd explored the vast, dreamy landscapes of outer and inner space with their psychedelic sounds, while The Who attacked the stage with the raw, explosive energy of a street fight, pioneering the idea of the rock opera. In such a competitive environment, you would expect rivalry and tension. Yet, Roger Waters has always spoken of The Who with a genuine warmth and admiration that goes far beyond simple professional respect. He saw them not as rivals, but as brothers in arms. Waters has said that The Who was his favorite band to tour with, and this small comment speaks volumes. Life on the road in that era was a grueling, chaotic experience. To have another band on the bill that you could trust, that was professional, and that understood the immense pressure, was a rare gift. It points to a deep sense of camaraderie, a shared feeling of being in the trenches together. Behind the scenes, away from the roaring crowds, There was likely a mutual understanding between two groups of young men who were changing the world with their music and dealing with all the madness that came with it. Waters saw a band that, like his own, was serious about its craft and delivered a powerful show every single night. The connection goes much deeper than just friendship on the road. Waters, the master architect of grand concept albums, would have looked at The Who's guitarist and main songwriter Pete Townshend as a fellow traveler. Townshend's ambitious works, like the rock operas Tommy and Quadrophenia, were telling complex, feature-length stories long before Pink Floyd released The Wall. Both writers were exploring similar themes of alienation, madness, and the struggle to find one's place in a cold, modern society. Waters would have recognized Townshend as another artist using rock and roll for a higher purpose, to create entire worlds of sound and story. He respected The Who not just for their loud, aggressive power, but for the brilliant mind that was directing it. They shared a hunger to make rock music mean something more, to turn it into a form of high art that could explore the darkest corners of the human experience. For Waters, The Who wasn't just another loud band. They were his peers in the truest sense of the word. While he admired The Who for their grand scale, his love for another band was all about their focus on the small, brilliant details of everyday life. 3. The Kinks.
About 4 years we've been together, but we've only had the name Kinks for about 2.
A different kind of respect, one rooted in the art of songwriting itself, is what Roger Waters has always held for the Kinks. To understand why, you have to picture the music scene in the mid-1960s. The British invasion was in full swing, but many of the biggest bands were taking their cues directly from America. They were playing faster, louder versions of American blues and rhythm and blues. It was exciting and revolutionary, but it was not uniquely British. Then there were the Kinks, led by the brilliant songwriter Ray Davies. In a sea of bands trying to sound like they came from Chicago or Memphis, the Kinks sounded proudly and completely like they came from London. This is what captured the admiration of Roger Waters. Ray Davies was doing something radical. He was writing songs about his own world with unflinching honesty and sharp detail. He wrote about the specific sadness of watching the sun set over a dirty river in Waterloo Sunset. He wrote clever, sarcastic songs about the fashion-obsessed kids of Carnaby Street in Dedicated Follower of Fashion. He painted beautiful, nostalgic pictures of a vanishing England, full of corner shops and village greens. He was less of a rock star and more of a poet or a novelist, using his music to tell uniquely English stories. For a budding writer like Roger Waters, this was a profound lesson. It showed him that rock and roll lyrics didn't have to be limited to vague ideas of love and heartbreak or borrowed blues slang. You could write about your own home, your own society, and your own life. This influence is written all over Pink Floyd's greatest work. The grand, universal themes of albums like The Dark Side of the Moon and The Wall are built on a foundation of very specific, personal, and often English observations. When Waters writes about the pressures of modern life, the trauma of war, or the hypocrisy of the British class system on the album Animals, he is following the path that Ray Davies blazed. He learned from the Kinks that the most powerful way to talk about big ideas is to focus on small, human details. His love for the Kinks is the deep respect of one master storyteller for another. In Ray Davies, he saw a kindred spirit, an artist who was not afraid to be himself, to write what he knew, and to use his music not just to make people dance, but to make them think and see their own world in a new way. His admiration for English originality was matched by a deep respect for the raw, bluesy power of another band that ruled the world alongside them. 4. The Rolling Stones.
My recollection
Yeah.
is that Mick said, what we need to do is say, let's make an album, let's blitz it.
From the very beginning, if the British rock scene had two opposite poles, They were Pink Floyd and the Rolling Stones. The two bands represented entirely different sides of the musical brain. Pink Floyd was the band for the thinkers, the dreamers, the explorers of the mind. Their music was complex, atmospheric, and meant for listening to with headphones in the dark. The Rolling Stones, on the other hand, were the band for the body. Their music was raw, dirty, dangerous, and built on a foundation of pure, primitive blues. They were the swaggering, rebellious heart of rock and roll. It seems strange that an artist as cerebral and controlled as Roger Waters would have such a deep love for a band so visceral, but his respect for the Stones is built on the very things he values most: authenticity and power. Waters has always respected the Stones for their foundational role in the music scene he grew up in. Before a band like Pink Floyd could take their audience on a trip to the outer limits of sound, a band like the Rolling Stones had to kick the door off its hinges first.
Describe, I mean, I don't know if you've ever been on stage, but people that are like, like going on telly for the first time, or something. It's a bit like that.
The Stones took the raw, electric energy of American blues and injected it directly into the veins of British youth culture. They made rock and roll feel vital, rebellious, and real. Waters, an artist who has dedicated his life to exposing lies and demanding truth, would have had immense respect for the brutal honesty of the Stones' music. There was nothing fake about them. They were a force of nature, and Waters understood that their raw power helped create the very space that allowed more experimental bands like his own to even exist. Beyond their historical importance, Waters also admired their incredible ability to last. The story of Pink Floyd is famous for its arguments, breakups, and bitterness. Waters himself left the band he made famous and fought a long, painful battle over its name. He knows better than anyone how hard it is to keep a band together. So, when he looks at the Rolling Stones, at Mick Jagger and his glimmer twin Keith Richards, still on stage together after 60 years, still a massive cultural force, he must feel a sense of absolute awe. It's a respect for their incredible endurance, their unbreakable partnership, and their sheer will to keep going. While Pink Floyd's art was about creating perfect, polished masterpieces in the studio, the Stones' art was about the messy, imperfect, and powerful magic that happens between a few guys in a room. Their paths were completely different, but Roger Waters clearly loves the Rolling Stones for being the real, uncut, and unstoppable article. This respect for endurance and integrity extends all the way to the modern era, proven by an incredible act of trust on the world's biggest stage. 5. The band.
Once we're brothers, it ends up focusing on the brotherhood of the band.
Roger Waters has a known appreciation for music that feels real, honest, and deeply rooted in genuine experience, and his admiration for the band fits perfectly with this preference. He has specifically mentioned how much he was struck by what he described as the rawness of the band's groundbreaking and highly influential 1968 album, Music from Big Pink. That word, rawness, is very telling. It suggests that Waters heard something in their music that was unpolished, direct, and free from the usual studio tricks or commercial gloss that was common at the time. Music from Big Pink, recorded in a house in upstate New York, had a sound that was unlike anything else. It was earthy, a bit mysterious, and felt incredibly authentic, drawing on a rich tapestry of American musical traditions like folk, blues, country, and early rock and roll. This appreciation for the band's collective sound and their influential Americana style shows another side of Waters' musical taste. While he is often associated with the grand, conceptual, and sometimes heavily produced sound of Pink Floyd, his respect for the band indicates a love for music that is perhaps more organic and seemingly simpler on the surface, yet deeply resonant underneath. The band was made up of 5 incredibly talented musicians, 4 from Canada and 1 from Arkansas, and each member was a strong singer and multi-instrumentalist. They didn't have one single frontman in the traditional sense. Instead, they created a unique sound through their interplay and their shared musical vision. Their songs often told stories of everyday people, historical characters, and the landscapes of America, all delivered with voices that sounded like they had truly lived the stories they were singing. This sense of a collective unit creating something unique and powerful together is something that might have resonated with Waters' own experiences, especially during the earlier, more collaborative days of Pink Floyd, before he became the principal songwriter. The idea of a group of musicians working together, each bringing their own unique talents to create a sound that is bigger than the sum of its parts, is a powerful one. The band's music wasn't about flashy solos or rock star poses. It was about the songs themselves, the stories they told, and the genuine emotion they conveyed. Their rawness wasn't about being technically imperfect. It was about being emotionally direct and musically honest. For Roger Waters, an artist who has always valued substance over style and authenticity over artifice, the music of the band, especially an album as seminal as Music from Big Pink, would have stood out as a shining example of timeless, heartfelt, and deeply American music. The band's earthy authenticity was one source of admiration for Waters, and he also held a strong respect for another band known for his sharp and direct music sound. 6. Pearl Jam.
And then I remember calling Stone and I said, "Do you need to come over here right now?" And
Roger Waters' respect for his musical heroes from the 1960s is well known, but his admiration is not only reserved for the past. A much more modern example of an artist earning his genuine esteem is the Seattle-based rock giant Pearl Jam. While Waters may not talk about them in interviews as frequently as he talks about his old peers, his actions have spoken far louder than any words ever could. In a powerful display of trust and respect, he has chosen to share the stage with Pearl Jam's iconic frontman, Eddie Vedder, to perform what is arguably Pink Floyd's most sacred and personal song. This is not just a casual jam session. It is the ultimate endorsement from an artist who does not give his approval away lightly. The song in question is Comfortably Numb, the stunning centerpiece of The Wall. The track is legendary, not just for its haunting lyrics and epic guitar solos, but for its unique structure as a duet between two characters, with Waters singing the verses of the jaded, broken doctor and David Gilmour singing the soaring, ethereal chorus of the rock star, Pink. The interplay between the two voices is a key part of the song's magic. For decades, that song was a symbol of the Waters-Gilmour partnership. For Waters to allow another singer to step into that role is a monumental decision, and he has chosen Eddie Vedder for that honor on several incredibly significant occasions. The most famous of these collaborations took place at the 12-12-12 concert to benefit the victims of Hurricane Sandy. On a night filled with legends, on a broadcast seen by billions around the world, Roger Waters brought out Eddie Vedder to sing Gilmour's parts on Comfortably Numb. Why Vedder? Because Waters sees in him and his band a reflection of his own most cherished values. Pearl Jam is a band that has built a long and successful career entirely on their own terms. They famously took on Ticketmaster in a fight over ticket prices. They have always been politically active and outspoken. And most importantly, they have managed to become one of the biggest bands in the world without sacrificing their artistic integrity. They never became a parody of themselves. In Eddie Vedder, Waters surely sees a kindred spirit. Vedder is a frontman who commands a stage with raw, emotional power, but without any of the cheap theatrics that Waters dislikes. He is a thoughtful and often political lyricist, and his deep, gravelly voice conveys a sense of weight and honesty. By inviting Vedder to share his most important song, Waters was making a powerful statement. He was effectively passing the torch, acknowledging that Pearl Jam and its frontman are worthy carriers of the spirit of true, meaningful rock and roll. It was the ultimate sign of respect, a quiet acknowledgement that, in a world of fake and disposable music, Vedder is the real deal. These artists, with their fearless words and honest music, clearly lit a fire in Roger Waters, showing the kind of artistry he holds dear. Their songs weren't just entertainment, they were powerful statements, a standard he clearly values. But what do you think about his choices? Do you think some of these are overrated? Share your thoughts in the comments section, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more.